Welcome, people of planet Earth and all planets beyond. Thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Josh, and did you know there was a secret code on the back of your Levi's closure button or on the back of your Levi's jacket button backs? Well, there is. Let's get into what those mean. So it does turn out that little stamp on the back of your Levi's jeans or jacket does mean something. That something is the factory code. This factory code tells you, or tells Levi's, where this particular pair of jeans was made. Was it made in America? Which factory in America? Was it made in Mexico? Which factory was it made in Mexico? And you can learn a lot from this particular factory code and this particular piece of information. We can learn how to approximately date our jeans. We can learn where our jeans come from. These are helpful things when we are trying to identify different elements and different ages of different vintage jeans. Now, I don't exactly know when the factory code system began, when they started making these stamps. That people say it's the 50s, some say it's the 40s, but it's all over the place around that time, so I'm generally going to assume that it's somewhere around 1940s, 1950s. But the earliest versions of this factory code were either one digit, they were one letter, or two digits. These seem to be the most common from the earlier days of Levi's. In some cases, you'd actually see this factory code on the rivet itself, not just the button, but on the rivets that held the jeans together. The system seemed to be sort of constantly in flux and relatively inconsistent from factory to factory. But that all changed in 1981 when Levi's rolled out the 3-digit factory code system. And it's approximately 1981 when they did this, and I say that because, like with most vintage rules, they're more like guidelines. Because when you're talking about manufacturing, you can't necessarily turn the whole ship all at once immediately. Sometimes these transitions take years. And in this case, you might find a handful of single or double digit jeans produced after 1981, but largely the transition began in 1981 and was probably complete in a couple of years. One of the more common codes you'll see in the 3-digit era is 555, which was the San Francisco Valencia factory. Most of the American codes read as with a 5 at the beginning or so. In fact, I've actually linked in the description a couple of resources, a couple lists that give you a breakdown of a bunch of the different codes and what they mean and what country they represent. So you can take a look in the description through the links and the resources below to maybe discover one random number that you've seen on the back of your jeans that you're curious as to where they came from. Now, that doesn't mean that every factory code is going to be contained in these lists. There were tons of these, and they were sort of used for certain periods of time and maybe changed. So don't put all of your hope in this one list in the description, but it should be very helpful. So as Levi's began to outsource production to overseas and internationally in the late 90s, they expanded the code to include 4 digits in some cases. Sometimes it's 3 numbers and 1 letter. Sometimes it's 2 numbers and 1 letter, like in the case of Japan. But this was the new format going forward, and it's currently the format in use today. In 2003, the 555 code ended its use in production because the factory in San Francisco closed down, thus ending the American production of Levi's until at least the Levi's vintage clothing collection came out and they started reproducing some of this stuff in America. So to briefly recap, if you have a pair of jeans with a single digit, a single letter, or 2 digits, then you have a jean most likely produced prior to 1981. And if you have one with 3 digits, you most likely have something from 1981 to approximately 2003. And if you have something with 4 digits, it could be from the late 90s all the way to present day. Now, this code is not simply on the back of the button of your jeans or jacket. It actually can also be found on the care tag of your garment. The care tag was introduced in 1973, so the care tags will include the factory codes from then on. You can find that code somewhere on the back side typically of these care tags. And it's important and very helpful to know what the factory code is off the button of your jean so that you can look on that tab and decipher what numbers mean what. And if you need to learn how to read those numbers, we have a video on just that. Right in the eye above, you can learn how to read Levi's factory, Levi's care tags. It can be a little bit confusing, but hopefully that video will help you. A couple other caveats to remember about the factory codes, and that is one, that in the 90s, Thailand produced a lot of fakes and forgeries of Levi's, and typically they included the 501 in the factory stamp right behind the button. The unfortunate part about this is that Levi's themselves actually released jeans with 501 behind the button back, so it's a little confusing. You'll have to use other methods to authenticate whether or not your jeans are like a Thai fake or a Levi's, actual Levi's production. Another caveat to be aware of is that Levi's vintage clothing collection, even though they're reproducing jeans from the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, even earlier, they are going to use whatever current factory code system was being used at the time. So if it's 3 digits, it's going to be 3 digits. If it's 4 digits, it's 4 digits. But don't be surprised to not find a 6 or a 4 on the back of an LVC product, because Levi's still uses the factory codes like they are used in present time. So I love looking at the back of these buttons, finding out where these things were produced, which factories in America they were produced in. Gives me a little bit more connection to the stuff I'm finding out in the thrift store, the yard sale, the garage sale. Just a little bit more about its story and how it got to me. So I think it's cool. I hope you do too. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this was helpful. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more vintage Levi's content like this. And we'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.